Welcome to our Soul Talk, a series to explore and expand your connection with your inner voice, your soul. I'm Gil Rowland and
I'm Soul Dancer, your co-host for a journey we invite you to join with us.
We divided this series into 4 phases. Each phase offers 13 classes. We recommend you pace yourself with each class. Carve out a little time each day to journal your thoughts on the exercises we suggest. Take at least 1 week to explore each exercise. Remember, each class builds upon prior classes such that the results of each class enhances the outcomes of upcoming classes.
In the next 15 minutes, we'll walk you through our Soul Talk Phase 2. If this audio or video is your first Our Soul Talk experience, visit bit.ly/OST RADIO. Again, that's bit.ly/OST radio to review Phase 1's overview anytime. Gil and I have planned for our Soul Talk Phase 2, titled Thought Expansion. So for those who've ever gone through an academic exercise, at the beginning of the class you get what? A syllabus! And that syllabus does what? A, it tells you what you're going to do. B, it gives you a path that you're going to take. And C, it gives you some sense of what outcomes we hope happen, right?
Absolutely.
So as we give you this overview for Phase 2, which we're labeling Thought Expansion, oh my God, Gil, what type of masochistic jerk are you? You want to kick this off with root cause analysis part 1 and 2?
For those,
what the hell are you talking about?
We start to look at things from a different perspective than we normally would. It is basically an analysis of going back over your timeline on how you got to the point where you are from the point where you were.
So before you do weeks 14 and 15 or weeks 1 and 2 in Phase 2, I'm going to remind you the very second podcast that we did, titled Personal Perspective Exploration, we invite you to explore more than analyze. Gil, is it fair to say a good, healthy root cause analysis is actually exploring more, analyzing less?
Absolutely. I would go so far as to say even the way that you have a thought and how you think it can either stigmatize where you're trying to get to or can expand it even further.
So let's get visual for a moment. Let's take the notion of weeding. If a seasoned gardener knows that when they weed, they use a trowel. They use a device to loosen the soil around the weed before they pull the weed out. Why?
To make it easier to get the whole thing in one fell swoop.
Correct. If I don't loosen the soil before I pull the weed out, there's a likelihood that there's part of the root that's going to stay there. When we pull the weed out and we dust it all off, isn't it common for roots? You got the main root and then the sub-roots, and then when you really look at a true root system, there are these tender, almost hair-like type of roots, right?
Look at any weed, rather, that when you pull it out, the little hairs that are still stuck in it.
So we're going for the hairs. We're going for the root cause analysis, the hairs. And in order to do that, we have to explore. If you're holding on to certain beliefs, if you're holding on certain ways of doing things in this root cause analysis process, you haven't loosened the soil, have you?
Not at all.
All right.
You're just placating yourself.
So that's the first 2 weeks of Phase 2. The second 2 weeks is fresh perspectives.
Oh, so what you're saying is after you take out the weed and all the hairline roots therein, now you're left with a vacuum.
You're left with a vacuum, and you're left with magic. Is it fair to say that a fresh perspective on something reawakens us to magic?
Absolutely, because you're an absolute beginner. Your opportunities and options are infinite at that moment. Make it up as you go along instead of just being corralled into one particular lane.
So is it fair to say fresh perspectives is the gateway to potential?
Yes, absolutely.
So after you finish your fresh perspective journey, is it fair to say that once I have a new perspective, I've got some reconciliation to do?
if you got a new perspective on everything, whatever challenges came up, you also will have perspective on that as well.
So, for example, Gil, I tell you, hey, dude, we've known each other for years. I'm going to go back to college, and I'm going to become a pharmacist.
Okay.
Whereas before, you've known me all my life as a musician.
Yeah. So my first question, why pharmacy over musicianship?
Here comes the reconciliation of challenges. Whatever it is that you've got a fresh perspective on, you've got to share those fresh perspectives with other people you love and care for. You need to identify what, if any, challenges you're going to face. You may just determine that those fresh perspectives, you might need a new crew.
Huge. Huge.
This new crew, Gil, you remember when I said in a prior podcast how I heard of this person who changed their voicemail message? Hi, I'm out making changes in the world. You're welcome to leave a message. If I don't call you back, guess what? You're one of the changes.
Absolutely. I remember that.
All right, Gil, once we've reconciled the challenges that we're facing, what's our next step?
Well, from that point, now it's about engagement. Because now you have a fresh perspective. You are now stepping out into the external world with this new perspective and engaging with people from that. So you have to prepare all of the ripples that come from this new engagement.
So in other words, we got to let all the people that we know and love and care for, we acknowledge the fact that we might have these bumps and so forth and so on. Are you with us or against us?
Pretty much.
All right.
And what you get from that will come from week 21 or week phase 2.8. What's the feedback you get? I think you will find out very, very quickly who's for or against you.
It's absolutely critical you seek that feedback, no matter how painful or difficult it might be, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter what risks you need to take. If you don't get that feedback, ladies and gentlemen, what do we set ourselves up for?
Failure. Do not pass, go, do not collect $200.
SOSDD, same old shit, different day.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when we blend, preparing for our ripples, reversing the ripples, meaning getting relationship feedback, we're now on week 22. We're finally getting to the heart of the matter of our soul talk. Soul tribe. Gil, when you hear the word soul tribe, what does that mean to you?
Home. Literally home. And what I mean by home are when I go home, who are the people that I engage with? Who do I want to cultivate that I want to allow into my home space that are there for mutual benefit of evolution, understanding, and love?
The whole concept of ripples, we're going to do that continuously through the rest of phase 2. We go from our own personal soul tribe to what?
Now we're going into other communities of tribe, so tribal communities. Your tribe in conjunction and connection with another soul tribe. And what relationship is that? Now we're going from a mutual benefit within your own house to mutual benefit and consideration in worldly houses of other people's soul tribes in conjunction.
So think of it, we've gone from your house to the neighborhood.
Pretty much.
And from the neighborhood, we're going to go into something I don't think we do really often. In week 24, or in phase 2, week 11, we're going to look at respecting tribal perspectives. Are we not in a bunch of doo-doo right now because we've ignored tribal perspectives for so long?
Well, it's the first time in recorded human history that somebody had actively, verbally acknowledged other from as other. Not passive aggressively, not hidden behind the walls of concealment, but hey, I don't like X. I don't like you do Y. And the other person, well, I don't like that you do X or Y either. So we are now doing what I call headbutting. And within this headbutting, what's going to happen is an understanding will come from it. How it is going to be done is what's in question now. What we're suggesting is when you have different tribes now coming together and they may do a different shade of something that you do, how do you engage with them? How do you respect them? Can you see it from their perspective that gives you that sense of mutual understanding? That even though that may not be your thing, you can definitely understand why it's someone else's.
So in week 23 of series, or week 10 and 11 of phase 2, weeks 23 and 24, we begin to recognize what is commonly known as cultural competency. If you're not familiar with the term cultural competency, Google it. But it basically is as simple as this. If I was born and raised in Iowa, and I've never left Iowa, and I go to Japan, Tokyo, and I'm now living in Tokyo, is it fair to say there just might be a few differences culturally?
Couple minor ones, but not out of the ordinary.
Yeah, right. In other words, respecting tribal perspectives happens only when I have experienced the tribe. And I do mean experienced, not sampled, not toured.
Are you going back to the old adage, when in Rome?
Yes. So in other words, as we conclude phase 2, we're going to ask you to begin to become more culturally competent, more culturally sensitive. Not as in roll over and play dead, but become aware of how your life and their life, for us to survive and thrive on a synergistic level, we really need to respect each other, right?
Absolutely. So on week 25 and 26, now that we have an understanding of what these perspectives are in lieu and in connection to our own soul tribe, within our soul tribe, we're going to look at the ascension that happens with that. Our own personal ascension of our evolutionary process within a support structure of our tribe, and how that then envelopes and outwardly projects onto the tribal ascension. All things reflected back to you is reflected back to others. Because as you ascend within this soul tribe, so do they. And it is in a harmonious, natural state that is benevolent and symbiotic for all involved.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Gil, the last 2 weeks of phase 2 is summed up in that old cliche, a rising tide raises all boats.
Absolutely. Period. End of discussion. Once again, I'm Gil Rowland. As we wrap up our overview of our Soul Talks Phase 2, do you sense how to plan to help you explore and expand your connection with your inner voice, your soul?
Phase 2, we guide you through time-tested tools to connect, create, and celebrate your growth on multiple levels, growing personally, professionally, and spiritually are all natural outcomes of our journey with you.
Aloha!